Warning. This episode of Kyoto Video contains scenes of rape and violence against women. Viewer discretion is advised.
Kyoto Video.
Warning, the following offer is for mature audiences only.
The early to mid-90s was certainly a wild time for anime in America. While Akira did prove that the market for anime existed in America, it was still a few years away from when Pokemon proved to the mainstream that anime could be extremely profitable. Anime was selling incredibly well to the people who had already considered themselves anime fans, but companies needed a way to keep that fan base growing. Most Americans saw anime as just cartoons, which is seen as just for kids, which is bad for some reason. The solution to this was to market anime as something different than the cartoons we knew, something exotic, something that emphasized the sheer variety and maturity that the medium had to offer. Something with a lot of violence and nudity.
Graphic, provocative, raw. This is no ordinary animation. This is the exotic, bizarre, and beautiful world of Japanese anime.
Companies like Streamline Pictures, Manga Entertainment, and especially Central Park Media really began to attach their collective wagons to the ultra-violent, for mature audiences only OVAs and movies that flooded the Japanese market in the 80s and early 90s. This was because A, they were dirt cheap to license, and B, easy to market to audiences by appealing to their basest desires. Advertisements on late night TV would extol, "This ain't your granddad's cartoons, buddy boy. This is Japanimation from Japan. It's for mature audiences only. It's got gore and titties." The rush to license nearly every ultraviolent X-rated anime that came from Japan meant that any and all sense of quality control was thrown out the window. The home video market was swamped with titles that sold themselves on their objectionable content alone. For every Ghost in the Shell and Bubblegum Crisis, there was crap after crap after crap. This was, after all, the era where anime fans became familiar with such esteemed classics like Angel Cop, Genocyber, and MD Geist. And naturally, it didn't take too long for anime and anime fandom in general to be clowned on for its choices in media.
So is this gonna be a super violent porn cartoon?
But even in the rush to grab every OVA that sprayed the celluloids with red paint and localized them for American otaku, distribution companies did in fact pass on a few titles. There are still movies and OVAs from that era that were plenty schlocky but never even set a foot overseas. And judging from today's title, it's proof that even Central Park Media had standards. And that's a very scary thought.
これがあなたの生きがいってわけなの？茨城圭介。数年前、世の中から葬られ、姿を消したスーパースター。
Released between 1986 to 1988, Wounded Man, or Kizui Bito as it is sometimes called, is an adaptation of a Kazuo Koike manga of the same name. A Japanese journalist named Yuko is sent to Brazil to do a report on the gold rush phenomenon that seems to be making lots of people rich overnight. Rumors say that among the many prospectors currently on the Amazon forest, there is a Japanese known as Ryo Baraki. Reaching their destination, unpleasant things that we'll get to later take place, and Yuko discovers the man known as Ryo Baraki is actually Keisuke Ibaraki, a once promising star quarterback for USC. After a big game, a group of thugs kidnapped him and his high school sweetheart, threatening them with death if Ibaraki refused to make an X-rated film with a famous female tennis player. He refused because his heart belongs to his sweetie and no amount of money would compromise that. So in return, his girlfriend gets murdered and he gets framed for it. And from that point on, he swears revenge on the organization that ruined his life, GPX, otherwise known as God's Pornographic X-Rated Films. I couldn't make this up if I tried.
God Pornographic X-Rated Film.
And this anime. Oh boy, this anime, this curse, this blight, this evil, this... Okay, Okay, I've certainly slammed the cards down on the table a little early regarding this anime, but come on, look at this! It kind of speaks for itself, really. I mean, when I started this series, I swore to myself I wouldn't go for the low-hanging fruit right out of the gate and search for more obscure titles, but man, I feel like I bit off a bit more than I could chew here. But I'm gonna press on and go over with you why Wounded Man is probably one of the most loathsome animes of the 1980s. First, a little background on the studio behind this garbage heap, Magic Bus. Founded in 1977, Magic Bus was the creation of Satoshi Dazaki, elder brother to anime legend Osamu Dazaki. They mostly did in-betweens and production assistants up until 1985, where they started doing their own anime. Their work has ranged from respectable craft to absolute schlock, but probably their most well-regarded work was a small collaboration with Studio Artland and Madhouse that some people might know as Legend of the Galactic Heroes. Yes, I am as stunned as you are. But to be fair, Wounded Man was one of Magic Bus's first solo projects. Most studios have rocky starts, but it kind of makes me wonder how an anime this bad didn't sink this entire studio. This anime that I had to dredge up from the darkest corners of the internet, complete with bad subtitles and the fansubbers 2001 era email address burned into the footage. First, let's state the obvious with what's wrong with Wounded Man, namely the animation. Or what little there is of it. You can tell that the team was working with a budget that is not so much shoestring as it is dental floss. It's almost impressive how cheap this animation looks. It's purely nominal. Every character does not move like a person. They move like animation cells being dragged from one end of the frame to the other. Every establishing shot or still frame is lingered on purely as a means to pad out the runtime. The most egregious example of this is how the staff chooses to use postcard memories. Postcard memories are an animation technique invented by the aforementioned Osamu Dazaki, in which a still image is designed to look like an action shot, usually done in either pastel chalks or paints. This is to emphasize a critical moment or dramatic reveal, but in Wounded Man, it is used as a crutch to cover the low budget. Look at the scene in which our protagonist feeds a river of piranhas. There's no action happening, nothing dramatic is happening, it's just a guy feeding the fish. The staff is misusing this technique, thus making it whenever it does appear to be used correctly feel cheap and unearned. But the best example of the worst animation is the fight scenes. Here's a clip. Take a good look at how that fight scene played out. The overabundance of speed lines, the constant thrice repeating shots to economically intensify the action, the cheap manipulative editing where it goes from a still shot of a guy punching followed by a still shot of a guy flying back in pain as if you were watching a discount motion comic rather than an animated feature. That is how half of the fight scenes go in this anime. Granted, the animation does ever so slightly improve over the 5 episodes, though not by much. Even when the staff collectively asked, hey, maybe we should put some animation in this animated OVA, the results are pretty poor. It just uses basic maneuvers to make the fight scenes look more interesting than they actually are, and the way those maneuvers are animated are so choppy it's borderline hilarious. And even then, they rarely, if at all, use actual animation. They prefer to fall back into the old habits that got them there, trying to convince you through camera angles, dramatic music, and quick editing that a dramatic fight scene is unfolding, when 90% of it is two guys standing across from one another. Wounded Man is trying to get by presentation alone, and even that aspect is laughable. Take the soundtrack. It sounds like they had a swelling dramatic score in mind in the composition process, but decided to perform it on Little Jimmy's pre-owned Casio PT-100, making what should be a dramatic character moment be backed by music from a video poker machine.
俺は敗者で、そしてリベンジャーだ。
リベンジャー？
俺はリベンジャーだ。リベンジャーだ。リベンジャーだ。リベンジャーだ。リベンジャーだ。
Voice acting? It's there. Everyone is putting in their bare minimum, no real standout performances. Only really noteworthy thing is Mami Koyama's in it, and she sounds like she's trying to record her lines as quick as possible to get back to her Dragon Ball sessions.
クルーザーはついに完成間近となり出港の時が近づいた。 彼が人生の全てをかけて復讐を誓った相手 GPX。
Now, I know what you're thinking. All I've shown so far just makes Wounded Man look like a bland, cheap production selling itself on the fact that you will see dumb action scenes and liberal amounts of female nudity. It's an obvious ploy by a studio trying to make ends meet so they can pursue bigger and better projects. If anything, this could just be a contender for a bad anime night, right? No. You see, Wounded Man is bad in a special way. Not guilty pleasure bad like Goku Midnight Eye, or even failed ambition bad like California Crisis. No, Wounded Man is a vile anime, a heinous anime, a cursed, evil artifact of an anime. And it all comes down to the story. Let's address the big one. The one that will have most sane people turning off the anime in the first 5 minutes of the first episode. Okay, so remember how I said some unpleasantness happens between Yuko and Keisuke when they first meet? That's because the first action we see Keisuke do in this anime is that he rapes Yuko. He, honest to God, rapes her. The way the man, who is supposed to be the hero of the story, is introduced is that he brutally assaults and rapes a woman with the sole intention of scaring her back to Japan. And I'm pretty sure you can't do that. I think we've already gathered the first real problem, no wait, of this anime, but let's elaborate. It comes to no surprise right out of the gate that women in Wounded Man are not only given the short end of the stick, but also the end that was used to poke at a smelly dog turd. Throughout this entire anime, women, no matter how capable and strong-willed they are brutalized and humiliated by the stronger male characters. They also exist to get naked. A lot. You will never find more gratuitous nudity outside of a hentai. Wounded Man cannot go 5 seconds without a woman's blouse getting ripped off, especially if it's a fight scene. If a fight breaks out in this anime, you better believe a pair of exposed breasts will be shoved in the frame at some point. And the way the nudity is framed is skin-crawlingly disgusting. Soon after Yuko finds out who Keisuke really is, she and her camera crew are kidnapped by a group of racist caricatures. Her crew is tied up and she is stripped naked and sexually tortured by having a poisonous moth by her nether regions. And it is framed like it is a sexy scene and not a horrific act of violence. Each frame going over her curves in the creepiest fashion possible. In fact, every instance of nudity is played up for maximum titillation like it was directed by Jack Horner. But it gets worse. It gets so much worse. Because the end of the first episode, this happens. The stalest, most offensive, rape culture-laden trope is laid before us. Yuko falls in love with Keisuke, her rapist, because the sex was just that damn good. Burn it all down, man. Just burn it all down. Destroy this anime. Piss on the ashes. The flagrant misogyny displayed in this anime makes Golgo 13 look like Little Witch Academia. And the best part is, it gets worse, because the next episode, Yuko gets unceremoniously killed off. Yes, aside from being a brutalized sex object, Yuko is also there to be completely and utterly fridged just to give Keisuke angst. Just like his high school girlfriend, who is killed off to give Keisuke angst. But Keisuke gets a new girlfriend, who is killed off to give Keisuke angst. But then he gets a new girlfriend who lives. But the point is that women feel utterly disposable in this anime. And that becomes even more apparent when they get with Keisuke. Before they get with Keisuke, the women appear to have personalities. Most of these personalities are pretty broad, being bad girl, hysterical dame, lusty broad, or scary. But whenever they fall in love with Keisuke, usually after he sexes them up, they just become loyal lapdogs to him, following his every command, never questioning him, protecting him, dying for him, and thus losing every aspect of their prior personality. For instance, Peggy, the second girlfriend, is established to have a quirk where she visibly orgasms when she sees gold. And as disgusting as that character trait is, it is completely written out and never brought up again once she starts shacking up with Keisuke. Speaking of Keisuke, let's talk about him, shall we? Keisuke is a character the anime really doesn't want you to define by his actions. The story of Wounded Man really wants you to buy the fact that Keisuke is truly this heroic man with good intentions. A man who has been forced to make bad decisions by the hand he was dealt with in life. Every character that surrounds him is constantly talking him up, talking about how he not only is this dangerous badass, but also has a heart of gold.
がんであと1年の命と宣告され、死を待つだけの私を旦那様は雇ってくださった上に、私などが一生かかっても拝めそうもないほどの大金をお与えくださいました。おかげさまで家族の者たちは一生楽に暮らすことができます。
And my response to that as a viewer who has seen Keisuke's actions is, yeah, you expect me to believe that line of bull when Keisuke's introduction to the story is doing one of the most heinous crimes you can do to a person. Not only that, after all that talking up about how great and how awesome and how noble Keisuke is, he does it again in episode 4.
どうしたミスティ、怖いのか。お前の氷のような心を打ち砕いてやる。
Where do you get off at, Wounded Man? Where do you get off at trying to sell anime Ben Roethlisberger as a believable heroic protagonist? This man is not a hero. In any other anime, he would be a brutish minion killed off in a spectacular way by the true hero.
貴様のような奴を俺が生かしておくと思うか。
But even if we live in this impossible universe where Keisuke was this hero on the level of Kenshiro, the point is moot because the story at large is just told badly. This is the result of trying to cram 11 volumes of manga into a 5-episode OVA, a poorly paced mess of a story where it feels like huge chunks of the plot have been excised out of it. For instance, episode 2 ends with Keisuke and Peggy in a boat on the Amazon, and episode 3 begins with Keisuke and Peggy as billionaires in America living in Trump Tower, and I'm sorry, but I feel like we missed something between those two episodes. Like, how did they get back in the country? How did Keisuke get his football career back? How can we still sympathize with Keisuke if he lives in Trump Tower? And any time where the anime could explain these things, those scenes are actually just spent on pointless, badly animated action scenes. I don't think we needed to see an extended knife fight between the two main villains for a crowd of elderly police officers anime. And what is the ultimate conclusion for this anime? A really stupid twist, that's what. It turns out GXP was an arm for the CIA to gather information on people, and as a result of the department switching heads, it was shut down years ago. GXP technically no longer exists. I'm not even going to get into the amount of plot holes that idiotic twist opens up. I just want you to know that's how the anime ends, with the characters shrugging their shoulders and wondering, well, now what do we do? It was like the whole anime has just told me I wasted my time watching this crap. And really, with every one of these problems stacked on top of each other, the ultimate outcome is a very boring anime. Unsympathetic characters, bad animation, clumsy storytelling, and an uninvested presentation obviously results in a wholly uninteresting story. This whole anime was a chore to watch because once you get past the monstrous gender politics, you are left with 2.5 hours of boring gray sludge. None of these characters endear themselves to the audience, and the story is ultimately an exercise in futility. You almost feel like no one wanted to put any effort into this story. It is passionless, exploitative garbage. Wounded Man is, in a way, the perfect example of the types of anime that were flooding the OVA market at the time. Cheap cash grabs that sold itself on violence and nudity with strong, powerful men and submissive women, set against a story that wants to become more than the sum of its parts. Wounded Man is one of the worst examples of its medium. It is not even worth being dredged up for kicks. It should be forgotten. And yet, here I am, examining this piece of buried trash, exposing it for all the world to see like it was some kind of carnival freak. Hopefully this video has encouraged you to not go seek this anime out. Let it rot in bootleg hell for all eternity like it deserves. Fare thee well, Wounded Man. You shall not be missed. I need a shower.